Time to blast off. Let's do this.
We are blasted off. Welcome everybody
Right
to
on.
this week's episode of Expert Witness with Doug Miner and Stephen Palmieri, and special guest Michelle Peoples. Michelle Peoples is she and I met in this credit repair. Actually, she's now in our credit repair training course. And she is joining us today with her firsthand knowledge on medical billing. And I know that's a hot topic for everybody. And so, Michelle, thank you for joining us. What part of the world are you joining us from here today?
Today, I am in Illinois.
Awesome. Awesome. And then, Doug, you're coming from sunny California still. Is that right? Just basically one foot halfway on that golf course behind you?
No, it's the beach behind me. I went and checked the waves out this morning. It was all right.
Cool. So that is for those of you guys who are watching, obviously we're kind of monitoring the comments. And so make sure you do chime in. We do this for you. And then Doug's going to have to dip out after about 15 minutes, but he's going to take us off here and stuff. And so again, for those of you guys who don't know Doug Miner is what is called a qualified expert witness. There's two types of expert witnesses: unqualified, I guess, and qualified. Qualified is when you basically have passed the sniff test. The opposing party has tried to impeach you and discredit you and gone before the judge, and you have a little hearing, and they're like, "Judge, this guy is not really qualified to give expert testimony." And then the judge says, "Go pound sand, opposing counsel. I like Doug. He's qualified." And then when you get that ruling first time, that changes the whole game, doesn't it, Doug?
It's a good feeling. You know, it does change the game. You're qualified now. Anytime somebody asks you, you get to say that you're qualified, and whether it is federal or state court or both. And so, super excited about today, and talking to Michelle before the show started, trying to dig into her expertise. It's going to be interesting. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss some of it.
That's okay. You know, and Michelle, the amazing thing about her expertise, she's the best kind of expert who doesn't even know that she's an expert. When I asked Michelle, I was like, "Hey, you know, you'd be amazing as a guest on this show." And she was like, "Dude, I don't have anything to contribute." I'm like, "Au contraire," pardon my French. But so Michelle, let's talk a little bit about you. How did Michelle come to be on this show? So you were in the military, in the Navy, in the medical side of the Navy for a bit, weren't you?
Yes, I spent 25 years in the medical field, both military and civilian. Everything from emergency medicine to I have a specialty in cardiology, and I spent a good part of that as an instructor as well.
Was that because you were breaking people's hearts over there? That's why you were in cardiology all the time, or what? How did you end up over there?
Eventually, everyone needs cardiology.
All right, cool. So 25 years. And then at some point, did you work in the private sector in the medical field as well? Or was it
Actually, yeah, I started out in the private sector, and then joined the military actually a little bit later in life. Come from a big military family. And after, you know, when you're in the military, you get hurt often. So after about 10 surgeries, I couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And it was time for me to be retired. And so I spent the last 2 years waiting on my paperwork and whatnot, doing medical billing exclusively for 2 years at the end.
You are a secret, what they say, a diamond in the rough. You are a secret gem. And we were talking before we started the recording, you're also going to college right now to get is it your PhD or your master's?
I am wrapping up my master's and my, it's a giant program. I will be an organizational psychologist eventually when I grow up and it's all done.
And that has something to do with the medical world, right? Like psychology?
Organizational psychology is really the psychology of business. How people think, how they operate, what's the best way to function, conflict resolution, change management, leadership. It's never ending.
Oh man, I might need to hire you and help me with my leadership skills, man. So, but I digress. So let's talk about that. So, I mean, really though, again, we kind of joke a lot, but in all seriousness though, the nice thing about this show that Doug and I do is it's a great way to kind of bring on people that we think have value in the marketplace. And you know, you kind of have two of the most important things. Like I've got three fingers. You got two of the most important things that people look for. one is you have firsthand knowledge, a lot of it for years and years working in the medical field and in the military, which is kind of cool, private sector and military, but you have firsthand knowledge. What that means is you lived it, you didn't read it, but now you're also going to kind of have that high level multi-letter degree, which, you know, it's valuable in the expert witness world. Like if you can add that on to your personal experience, I think at some point when opportunities come your way for like medical billing, medical debt collection, medical damages, you know, whatever we find your niche to be, but, you know, you'll be able to go to the judge and I think pretty easily find yourself being able to get qualified, you know, when that conversation happens and stuff. And so glad to have you here. You know, Doug, I know you gotta bounce out here in just a little bit. So I'll let you kind of open this one up here with Michelle, man, as the expert, man. What do you want to ask her? What do you see here? What's on your mind?
Before we started the show, Michelle and I were talking about what type of work she's doing, how she's doing her billing, a little bit touching on the expert side of it and the fact that she has this psychological or medical background, because we all know whether it's credit repair, whether it's financial help, or, you know, when you're trying to help people who've had a problem or been through some sort of hardship, or they just never were taught or learned how to handle these things, right? So Michelle can address the emotional impact and then probably better equipped than most people to help them navigate to a better outcome for themselves, right? It's always, let's focus on the desired outcome. And if that's a higher score or being able to buy a house or even just being able to get your first credit card, something, right? So it was interesting to kind of hear Michelle's background, because in the cases that I work on, there's the financial and the calculations and the codes and all these types of things that we talk about. But what kind of gets missed or glossed over a lot of times is the emotional side and how much that impacts somebody. Whether, and she's talking about cardiology, right? Like we all know I've had a heart attack and I was just in the hospital a month ago getting an angiogram. So
Goodness.
Yeah. So Michelle, I mean, I'd love for you to speak to, you know, how that can translate, let's say in a litigation where, let's say you come in as a credit expert, but you can also talk to or speak directly about the stress that it causes individuals, right? And how to help them recover. I think that's sort of your niche. That's going to be awesome for you.
You know, to be honest, this is all a big surprise to me still, because I have, like I said, I have not been doing formal credit repair. I just literally hit my 1-year anniversary, and everything that I do with people is focused on not just education, but on the elements that I need for the research project for me to graduate. So it didn't occur to me that anybody would want to hear any of this. I just thought everybody would think it was boring unless they were the client. So
no, that's because you don't really know who you're surrounded with. You're surrounded by winners. And you know what? Doug Meyer thought the same way. The very first time he accidentally became an expert witness, when he was running his credit repair company, he didn't know anything about being an expert. He just thought he was a credit fixer guy. And some attorney was like, found him and was like, hey dude, can you look at this thing? And like, and he paid him a couple grand or something to write some like 1-page report. And then like they paid him and he got a check in the mail. And Doug's like, why did I just get, what did I do? And then his friend was like, dude, I think you just provided expert testimony to a lawyer. So,
oh my goodness, that's amazing.
So that's really kind of how it happens. But I mean, you know, and I mean, for everybody listening here, I mean, we're obviously going to get into the meat and potatoes, really the medical billing and the knowledge and how the thing works. But I mean, this goes to show for everybody watching, we all have different skill sets, different life experiences. And, you know, shame on us if through the journey of life, we cannot figure out how to monetize that knowledge, right? Because I mean, by monetizing, that means you're providing a service for other people, whatever it is. And, you know, Michelle, you know, with your knowledge, I mean, there is definitely an opportunity, you know, if you're getting paid at some point down the road as an expert, that means you're helping people, right? You know, you're stepping into court cases using your knowledge and, you know, helping to the scales of justice hopefully be balanced and stuff like that. So let's just talk a little bit about, okay, so, you know, this whole thing kind of came about because in our training course, we had some little video and you kind of stepped up and were just wowing people with your inside baseball knowledge on medical coding and debt collections. And you've got more knowledge than the average credit repair person. So let's just talk a little bit of kind of about that. So on a high level, you know, what we're concerned about here they're like, how do we use Michelle's brain to help us repair people's credit? You know, and there's two parts to that. One is the credit and the other is the actual debt, right? The underlying debt. And then of course, but because they're medical, you know, you kind of got this HIPAA and the privacy stuff. And then, but oh, because it's medical, then there's like this entire system of coding. And like I tell people with the Metro 2, I mean, the Metro 2 is a data format with a very clear manual that says how it's supposed to be reporting. It's their industry standard. If the data is inaccurate, it's inaccurate. Same thing with medical coding, right? I mean, if you go in coughing and sneezing and they put you down as having hay fever, but you got the COVID and you get the medical bill, it says hay fever, but you had the COVID, it's entirely wrong, right? You know, you may have had the same symptoms. You know, don't be looking at me like you're all analyzing this. You get my point. My point is you go in there and it's like the same symptoms, right? Let's say you go in there coughing and sneezing and they push the wrong button in your medical bill thing. It's the wrong bill. It's an inaccurate bill, right? And I think that's kind of where some of your knowledge comes in, is knowing how the billing systems work and the system itself. And so, you know, before we jump into that, you know, Doug, I want to kind of give you one more opportunity. I know you have to roll in a minute, but, you know, anything else you want to kind of hear from Michelle before we really jump into the inside baseball, how the system works and how us as credit repair guys can learn from Michelle the right things to ask for, right? You know, when we're doing debt validations and how to look at those documents.
I think, well, first and foremost, Michelle, I'm super bummed that I have to go today, but I will be watching this when I get back. But the cardiologist, you know, I got to go see him. So
yes, you do.
You understand more than most people.
But
So,
yes.
when you get that bill, make sure you give it to Michelle to look over, make sure that they're putting the right codes in there. Okay. If not, maybe she can get you out of it, you know? So.
Yeah, Michelle and I, I look forward to talking to you after the show and catching up, and I'll watch the show and we can catch up a little bit. But thank you all for having me. And sorry I got to go, but Michelle, I can't wait to hear what you have to say and watch it a little later.
Sweet, Dan. Doug, you have a good one, buddy.
Good luck with the doctor.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. You take care, Doug.
Thank you.
All right. So, Michelle, we've got some comments popping in here. We've got a super fan, Elvis Garcia. He says,
oh, hey, Elvis.
He says that you can't be more wrong because you bring a lot of value, actually. So,
that was nice. Thank you.
You've got some love there. Let's see. We've got Cindy Leeson, teach us, Michelle.
What up, girl?
DD says hello, everyone, and Stephanie Adams says hi, L. There we go. We're calling you by little nicknames and stuff. So, all right. So let's kind of rock and roll here. Heart shape, yeah. So let's talk. I'll let you kind of take the lead a little bit, but really we want to know kind of inside baseball, high level, how does this conglomerate system work? And then if we can kind of get it down to which should we be able to ask for, you know, during debt validations for medical debts, what can we look for? And how can we kind of, you know, use whatever you're going to teach us today to leverage? Let's talk about the system. So all I know is a big ass system. Health insurance is a nightmare. I know that I've got to pay cash for the good stuff in my life, even though we've got some health insurance. And so I don't know how any of this stuff works. That's why you're here, Michelle. So help us understand the big picture. How does the system work?
Have you ever looked for a bat in the dark?
No, but I can hear it. I can hear like the little sonar of the bat sometimes when it flies around. So
when it comes to medical insurance, see what happened was kind of a big deal. Where I think, in my opinion, when it comes to people in this industry, I feel like what they're looking for is a way to solve a problem for the client, because they want to please the client. What pleases the client is a score going up. So in people's mind, because we're fans of immediate gratification, in people's mind, what's going to get them that is a deletion. That's so easy to say. And so like when this whole conversation started and I had talked about deleting, it didn't occur to me, okay, all the steps. So in the presentation that we're going to do in the second half here, I share a little bit more detail about that, but there are a number of things to consider. And the biggest part about that is fundability, because fundability is negotiability. And what people have to understand, anytime anybody calls me or emails me anything, talks to me about what is this in my credit report, or other businesses, especially now that we've been talking about it in pre-lit group, the first thing I ask them is, who's the original creditor? Where did it come from? Because that is going to tell you where to start. Sure, you can look at the credit report or the tri-merge or the backdoor portal or Beans and Franks, wherever you got your information from, and say, as long as it wasn't.
Wait, did you say Beans and Franks? Is that a joke? Is that like hot dogs? And what is Beans and Franks?
No, there are a number of third-party, as you guys all know, most of them doing this longer than I have. There's a number of third-party applications that you can get credit reports from. And so any of them that you look at.
Okay, so Beans and Franks,
say?
that's like an expression. That's not the name of a software or something.
No, sir.
Okay, all right. You gotta wear it, because I don't know when you're throwing like industry jargon at me, and so we just want to kind of slow it down here. So
sorry, you know I'm a clown.
You said, taking it to the original creditor, that's kind of where you want to go all the way back to. Let's just kind of
when I say take it there, look at what it is. In the presentation that we're going to do later, I actually have a chart in there to show people how massive of a concept this is. So if something says Joe Schmuckatelli Orthopedics.
That's a good Italian name, by the way. I recognize that, Schmuckatelli. Kind of like Palmieri.
So the original creditor was Joe Schmuckatelli Orthopedics. So there's a few things I already know from that. Orthopedics, it was a specialty, so I can track back the referral protocol that was involved. It is a private practice, which may or may not be part of a network, because otherwise it could belong to a series, because a series belongs to a network, but a network doesn't belong to a series. And then I lose people immediately. And I don't want to lose people. I want them to be able to understand it. So I feel like the visual is going to be really helpful there. I think it's important for people to understand that if a medical debt originated at a hospital, there's different kinds of hospitals. If it's a nonprofit hospital, nonprofit hospitals are required to enact their grant programs, but there's caveats to grants. Just like if we go to McDonald's and I order a 20-piece nugget and I open up the container, there better be 20 nuggets in the box. Because if there's 12, I'm lit.
Yeah. You're gonna be hungry too. You're gonna be lit and hungry.
So there's details upon details upon details, but it all starts with, where did that debt originate? One of the other things that is in the presentation side has to do with a huge thing that I think would help people out is you're going to be able to tell me what base segment it is, but the open date of the debt.
Yeah, the date open.
Okay, so the Metro 2,
all that stuff. Yeah.
Segment of that. The open date, when you're looking at a medical debt, the open date is not reliable. The CFPB has published that. They've acknowledged it. It is a fact. That date is not reliable. So for that reason, everything has to be validated. So then people will say, well, yeah, I'm going to go to the CRA or to the credit bureau. Credit bureaus don't validate, they verify, but okay, for the sake of argument, I'll play along. I actually do several different things at once. So it's hard to say, it's hard to explain.
No, that's cool. So for medical debts, for those watching, and actually Metro 2, again, which is the industry standard format for reporting accurate data, in their manual, it actually, it states that for debt collections, the date opened is the date that the debt collector acquired the debt. And so that is true. You cannot ascertain the original date open from the original creditor. And that, their own industry standard basically says, which is interesting because the definition section for the date open field says it's the date the account was originally opened. But then you go to a special section in Metro 2 manual where it talks about medical debt or debt collection reporting. And it says, well, use the date open field to report the date the debt collector got it. So that is really true. And it's a good point. When you see a debt collection item reporting, you don't know when it was originally opened. But let's kind of go back to the original creditor, because, whether it's a hospital or whether I'm just going down to the 5-minute ER here to just get something done, a lot of these places, they will like contract work out, right? Like maybe they'll take your blood and then they'll send it out to the lab down the street. And then the lab down the street like invoices them and then they send you the bill, right? So isn't that correct? Like there's a whole lot of like third party like getting involved in the bill.
You're getting me excited. Okay.
I'm getting you all excited. Watch out now, Michelle. This is a PG show here. So we got to calm it down. Let's talk about, because you know where I'm going with that. This thing is an entire cluster. You know what I mean? So by the time you get that very first bill, it's like blood work this and this, that, and everything. I'm like, well, who paid what? And so let's talk a little bit about that since you're getting all excited. Let's talk about that.
So I want to encourage everybody that's watching this, don't get frustrated, number one, because everyone recognizes that it's a nightmare. But when you guys see this chart that's going to be in the second half of this presentation, you're going to go, oh my God, that's what you meant. When you are seen at a facility, okay, I want people to think about it like this. There are four, hold on, I gotta put my glasses on, y'all. There are four categories you can kind of break this into, because not all medical facilities are the same. So a billing episode or an encounter that occurs is either owned by a hospital, it's owned by a specialty center, it's owned by a physician, or it's a paraprofessional owned bill. So while there are tons of different types of facilities, you're going to get that in the chart. If you think about those four categories of where a bill comes from, it's owned by a hospital, it's owned by a specialty center, it's owned by a physician, or it originated with paraprofessional. That will help you talk to your client. And
we would never know this if the debt collector says, pursuant to the plain language of the FDCPA in this one little case law we pulled out of our booty, we don't have to provide you anything except for just a little printout of something. We would never know that, which is why it's so
and you know what? And that's where I become the Alice in Wonderland that nobody wants to deal with in this situation. Because when you talk about plain language and FDCPA and the FCRA, one of the number one issues that the CFPB cited with the whole medical insurance world is that there is no plain language. There is an absolute violation of that law. And that's why the 2014 coalition came into play, because there is no plain language. And when billing happens, when an encounter happens, is not the same thing as when a medical collection happens. So if we line a bunch of us up and pretend that we're different patients, and you go to a private doc and this person goes to an ER and this person goes to an urgent care, different things are going to happen with those bills at different times. And there's different things that happen with insurance. And that's why I broke down the presentation that we're going to talk about next the way that I did. And I guess I didn't think about how hard this would be to do in reverse.
Okay. No, this is supposed to be easy. And for those of you guys watching, obviously, so Michelle's in our private training course, and we're going to have actually kind of a private session after, and we'll talk about that after. But if you guys want to plug in, we do have the $99 a month 30-day free trial pre-lit training course, or if you like what you see here, man, imagine what you get in there. So that's what she's talking about there. But we did want to bring her out here in the expert show, because I mean, even for you guys who aren't in our training course, you're here in the pre-lit community, and Michelle has an incredible amount of firsthand knowledge that is going to be beneficial in the years to come. as we all get to know her, she gets to know us, and we build our businesses. So let's kind of just simplify this thing, Michelle, a little bit. So, there's this law called HIPAA, the Health
Oh,
Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and it's the most misunderstood law. This is something that'll set your fuse off. It'll set that red hair on fire, won't it? So there's a lot of people that are out there really not understanding HIPAA. They kind of think, oh, if this thing is reporting on the credit report, it's a violation and all that kind of stuff. And let's start very, very high level. And I know you've got a pretty good understanding of it. Let's start very high level. So number one, HIPAA is a federal law. There is no private right of enforcement if they violate it. Okay.
That part.
Is that correct?
People, honest to goodness. And so this is being aired to the people in the community group as well as pre-lit group, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Y'all, I got you? Okay. Stop telling people you're going to sue for HIPAA. Stop that. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Oh my goodness, y'all are going to get yourself in trouble. I stay quiet in every credit repair group that I'm in, except when I see a question about a medical bill. I'll inbox that person or I'll comment. I'll be like, hey, y'all, that's not really what that is. So what happens when a medical entity gets tired of chasing somebody for their money and it gets either assigned to or sold to a collection entity to then go after you? There's a business agreement in place. That's also part of the federal regulation. So any information that is handed to them is done as a permissible purpose. And if the patient, which by the way, y'all, is your client, is requesting their information, it was given to them by that permissible purpose. Now, here's my fair warning in all love and respect to everybody in here. You need to be worried about yourself. Because I guarantee, I guarantee none of y'all have a HIPAA letter signed with your client.
Was that the Puerto Rican coming out of you? Did you say, oh,
Yeah,
Dios mío?
sorry.
Did I hear that?
Look, little Michelle starts to come out. None of y'all have a HIPAA agreement signed with your client. So while you're talking to them about that medical bill, and they're trusting you, they already trust you with their social and their credit, they're pouring their hearts out to you about the time that little Johnny tripped them and they fell down the stairs and they lost a finger and these things happened. They're sharing their private medical business with you. So now what are you doing with that document? Was it sent to your email? Was it sent to your phone? Are you storing it in some secure software? You need to look out for you in that situation. And anything that you say that surrounds that medical debt, you could have to answer to. So my E&O insurance that I have to have for school because I go out and teach people things doesn't cover me saying certain things in a paid environment. So, but my clients, oh no, I have HIPAA form for them.
Well, so let's back this up again. So, I mean, kind of at a minimum, kind of standard credit repair business operations, typically CROs will have some basic language just in their contract with the client that says, you give us power of attorney to talk to people. So hopefully you guys have at least that in there. But, with what we talk about here in this course, and one of the things in this group and in our training course is the power of attorney. Like if you get a notarized power of attorney, I mean, then you're stepping in your client's shoes. So number one, you should be able to send it over to the medical facility and act as if you're the client. But on the flip side, kind of to Michelle's point, if you've got that POA, you kind of become a fiduciary, right? I mean, so like that's part of the things about POA. But if you're like, oh, well, I don't have anything with them, well, then it's just kind of like negligence, you know what I mean? Because if you're sending letters out to these medical providers, signing the consumer's name, not representing that you're a third party, and then they send it out, to this, they think they're sending it to the consumer, which is they're covered, but the consumer just make sure your consumer doesn't get upset with you. But let's kind of go back to HIPAA there. Okay, so number one, under HIPAA was really designed to protect medical information with the insured and with certain medical providers. So it really covers medical providers. So like I've heard people post things up like, oh my God, all these people asking you if you got the corona vaccine, like, isn't that a HIPAA violation? Well, no, because they're not medical providers. It's just me and you talking out on the street. Now, maybe if my boss asked me, there may be some sort of like, certain things, but like it has to do with medical, like the facilities that are providing this service that are spelled out under HIPAA.
Yeah,
Let's
this
talk about that.
pandemic has really pushed a lot of the boundaries of privacy. And let's keep it real. I would be very upset if thinking about my private information and my privacy being violated. People have a right to be upset about that. But when you go to a hospital and you sign the documents when nobody's paying attention to because they just want to get to the doctor, or when you're in the ER and you want to get the hell out of the ER, all that's in there.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
So let's talk about, where the rubber meets the road and all this. We've got HIPAA. HIPAA does, under the language of, because it's a law and then there's a regulation that like kind of overlays the law. So the law, as you were mentioning earlier, it does allow you to have related parties that you can, well, number one, it allows you to collect a debt if you're a medical provider, but then even beyond that, it allows you to have business agreements with affiliated parties, related parties. And so in the modern world in which we live, pretty much your debt collectors are going to have some sort of a business affiliated agreement with the medical providers. So,
Yeah.
And even if they don't, they probably are still kind of safe harbored because they're just an extension arm of the medical facility trying to collect, which is authorized under HIPAA. I mean, I'm not a HIPAA expert, but I'm just talking kind of what I've read and understood with you. So the real teeth that I think that HIPAA has, though, that a lot of people do not talk about, is not to accuse these debt collectors of violating your rights or anything, but there are different ways under HIPAA where the patient does have the ability to communicate with the medical provider. You can file a complaint with them. You can ask them nicely to protect your information. They have the right to refuse. You can also ask them to disclose you everybody within reason that they've provided your information to. And there are certain people that they don't have to disclose, but
No. Everybody.
Everybody? Okay, I thought there were certain
Everybody.
exceptions. No? Okay, so
Everybody.
that's why you're the expert, and
Everybody.
I'm the judge learning, and you're the expert witness schooling me. So
Just a person.
but HIPAA, and I've used it where you send a letter. Well, like if you don't get anywhere with the debt collector, then you can send a letter to the original creditor because it'll show you on the hopefully you figured out who that is on the credit report. And these medical providers have somebody that they pay a lot of money to who is trained on HIPAA. That their sole job is to keep their ass from getting sued, right? Because last thing that doctor wants, that cardiologist that Doug's going to see, last thing he wants is some sort of a malpractice claim against him and HIPAA stuff. So you can use HIPAA as a way to get the ear of somebody at the original creditor, right? And then you're like, hey man, I've disputed this thing with your debt collector. I think they violated all these laws and stuff. I mean, if you want to recall the debt, pull it from them. You and I can have a conversation. Oh, by the way, I'm Steven and I've got a power of attorney for Michelle. Like, I'm not just some nefarious scammer over there. She notarized this thing, so I'm her representative. And we've had that work. You can do that to actually get in front of the original creditor. So in my experience, from where we sit as credit repair professionals, that's really the strength and power of HIPAA, is to use as a tool to get in front of the original creditor so you can negotiate with them, and then to try to extract information from them. And if they don't have all that information, make it a little bit more painful to improve your chance of negotiation. Would you agree with that as the best way to use HIPAA in credit repair, or do you have kind of a different take on it?
That is one thing you can do in some situations, and that's why you have to know what your fundability is and where your negotiability is. And for the people in the community group, I'll give you a teaser post until you get on over to the training group, and I'll share with you one part of the chart later.
Okay. You got a little teaser, huh? All right. Do you want to tease them now, or do you want to tease them a little bit later?
A little bit later, but
okay, cool.
So yeah, because you have to know. You have to know where things come from, because where it comes from and where it is in the process, because a debt is once a debt leaves a medical facility, it's only with that collection entity for a limited amount of time Ding, 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 super gem dropped there. It's only a limited amount of time. And there's a reason for it.
Yeah, and that goes back to, I mentioned the phrase, have the medical provider recall the debt. Now, this is not limited to medical, but in the debt collection world, an original creditor, if it's not a debt buyer, but if it's just a collector, the original creditor can pull what is technically called recall the account, and that has the effect, and even Metro 2 says it, of having the trade line deleted, right? So we've got a kind of a question, a point of clarification. Elvis Garcia, he's a super fan, Michelle, by the way. He says, so asking for validation to a collection agency on a medical, is it putting us at risk for having personal information from the medical information being provided for validation?
If you are validating a debt with your power of attorney, and your power of attorney covers you asking about debts, because that's what that limited power of attorney is for, then you're doing what the client authorized you to do. Now, if you are not using power of attorney and your client, who is a patient in that scenario, hands you, hey, here's the stuff that I got, or they email it to you, I tell everybody, do not send anything through my email. You need to use my software because then it's secure. Number one. Number two, if any of my clients bring me papers and it had to do with their medical bill, I'll usually hand it right back to them. My downtown office, I have 2 locks. I have a locked closet with a locked cabinet. That's that old school medical background. So I always do everything on the 2-lock method. But I always operate on the premise of, if I had to answer to it. So if Kwame, the Attorney General in Illinois, came to me and said, oh, what happened? If I have to say, what happened was, I set this on my desk and somebody saw it, and I can't explain that. I can't explain why in the hell I had it. So I don't want to have it.
Well, and I think at a high level, I mean, it kind of comes down to just safeguarding their personal information.
We
right?
should be safeguarding everything, but
yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the high level there, Elvis, is, I mean, because even with just having their social security number, I mean, we're obligated, we kind of have a duty to just safeguard their information. So,
yeah.
Even the medical facility, even though they'll be like, well, we mailed it out to who we thought was the consumer. I mean, you can't really blame them. But again, if you're helping the clients, if you piss them off, and you're just putting their stuff all over the place, I mean, it just kind of goes back to negligence and not doing the right thing. We've got a couple more questions popping in here. So Timothy Williams, when will the next session in the training group be? So that's gonna be today at 5:30 Central. So we're gonna get done with this one here in about 20 minutes, and then we'll be at 5:30 Central for those guys in the training course. Again, if you guys aren't in there, feel free to shoot me a message, man. We'd love to chat with you about that. We freaking go deep in that course. Okay, Aldiva, she says, what about the ICD-10 codes and diagnoses don't match? That tends to cause most medical collections, ... I have no idea what you're talking about, Aldiva.
So,
Michelle, take it away. What does she talk about? First of all, what are these codes?
Okay, hold on. So read me the question again, because I didn't agree with what I heard. So maybe I misheard it.
Okay, yeah. What about when the ICD-10 codes and diagnoses don't match, period? Then she says that tends to cause most medical collections.
Actually, most medical collections are the result of 99.9% medical collections are the result of a bill not being paid. ICD-10 codes, and the reason why I say it like that, who posted that comment?
That was Aldiva Rubalcava.
Aldiva?
Yeah, another super fan.
The reason why I answered it like that is because anytime anything comes to medical, I'm super, super petty about the details, because back in that world, if I wasn't, somebody could die. So I handle all details with that same veracity. An ICD-10 code, ICD-10 is the system of using numbers to relate to this world. The United States of America was 10 years behind getting on board with ICD-10. We were still on ICD-9. So a ICD-10 code breaks down why a person was where they were and for how long. A diagnosis code, you're getting more specific. I like specific. Let's say, how can I explain this one? Let's say a person, it has a code for chest pain. There are 18 subcodes that go with that chest pain, 6 of which have a modifier. Here's what that means. Chest pain not otherwise specified. They couldn't find a cause. Then in that 5 digits, so there's 2 decimal points. Instead of being 2-9, it'll be 3-1, then 3-2, then 3-3, then 3-4. Maybe it was heartburn. Maybe it was heartburn without any signs on an EKG. Maybe it was heartburn and EKG signs, so we did this test. This is a huge rabbit hole, this when I talk about Alice in Wonderland conversation. Now, are there often mistakes? There can be mistakes, but it's not so much about. One of the biggest mistakes that I saw working in medical billing that I had to take back to coders. So coders are the people who are licensed to punch data in. That's all they do. They might have a stack like this and be like, here you go. That's all you're going to do today. Code, 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 code. And many of them have a specialty for a department. One of the things that I would have to take things back to the coders for would be an issue. And this might be what you're talking about. We're just using different terminology. It would be an issue of bundling versus unbundling. And there are cases where it was done on purpose. You guys hear about these Medicare scams and things that are going on.
You got to get paid, man, you know?
Bundling and unbundling. So if I go to order, I always use food as an example because then I'm not using jargon and everybody knows about food. So if I go to McDonald's and I order, I don't eat McDonald's, but if I order a meal and I get 20 nuggets and fries and a drink, and the person comes to the window and throws the ice cubes on me and splashes the Coke at me and takes a handful of nuggets and some fries and throws that stuff in my car, aside from y'all seeing me on the news because I whooped his butt, that's not how that should be. You expect it to come in a bag with the nuggets in a box and fries in a container and the ice and the Coke inside the cup handed to you. That's literally bundling and unbundling and medical coding broken down. So if a person goes to get a blood draw and it was for this test, we know that involves these colors, and the colors is what they do with the blood. But if it was billed as for separate tests, hold on, why? And why did you bill me separately for this, this, and this when those things all go together? You always go in and get a lab tech. The housekeeper doesn't draw my blood because that's not within their scope of practice. So why did you charge me separately for that? So that's where the bundling and unbundling becomes an issue. I don't know if that's what you meant or if I Alice in Wonderland my way to a different rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
So that was amazing. So let's kind of, and Aldiva's got a follow-up post. I'll get to yours in a second.
Okay, I'm sorry, Aldiva.
No, this is amazing. So let's get back to the bundling and unbundling. So I'm a pretty simple-minded kind of a guy. So what I think of is like, you know, companies have products when they sell it to you, but they can have product bundles, which is kind of like if you want to buy these 5 things that would normally be sold individually, but if you buy them together as a bundle, you're going to pay less because we've got them kind of bundled. So that's what I think of when I think of like product bundling. So if I'm hearing you correctly,
Well, you make it sound like it's a special offer in medicine. It's not a special
Well,
offer.
I'm just dumbing it down because I'm a pretty simple kind of a guy. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's kind of like, okay, the blood draw and the this and the that and the whatever. Okay, these things kind of are designed to be billed together in this bundle for this scenario, which would be a cheaper bill than if you bill for these 5 things individually. Is that in very simple terms what you're trying to communicate?
Kind of, but let me make sure I don't present it as it's optional. So if a patient comes to me and they were having a cardiac procedure, on that day, they're going to leave the pre-op, they're going to come in, they're going to get medication from me. We're going to do a workup. We're going to hook you up to everything. We're going to make sure we have fluids on standby. We've already got this done. We've got your bed set up. We've got this. So this is all standard in the 73346. Why in the hell would I fill out an entire billing sheet coding for all those as if they were a different event? That's fraud.
So event, okay. So now you
that's
said
what she's talking about. I apologize. Is Aldiva female?
No. So you said the word event. I think that's key. So if somebody comes in for a singular event, the hospital or medical provider is supposed to identify what that event is. And then they're supposed to bill based on the bundles that relate to that event versus say, well,
some things are.
Yeah,
some things are bundled. So now let's say you are a person who goes in for a regular EKG and blood pressure check because you have congestive heart failure and high blood pressure. So, you have to do your once a week. So when you come in, you're not always going to see the doctor. So you're going to get the 9333 to get your EKG done, but we're not going to have an E&M code, which is your evaluation and management, because you didn't have face-to-face time with the doctor. They can't code for that unless the doctor physically sat in a room with you and looked at you. Then they have to document the number of minutes they were looking at you.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on, you're steamrolling here. So let's back up for a second. Now this is good. This is amazing. So like you said that they can't bill unless such and such. Is that basically just kind of in general under certain federal laws, medical billing laws? What mandates?
This is why with medical billing, it's not a one size fits all. Every encounter has accountability. That accountability is documented through ICD-9 or ICD-10. See, I said 9 by mistake. ICD-10, a CPT code, which is your common procedure terminology, and HIPAA is the world that says these HIPAA codes that say what I have to conduct myself in a procedure, what goes with this procedure. But the CPT has to do with the patient.
Okay, so
there's tiers and there's levels.
Okay,
so
let's kind of dial
people
this back.
Probably don't. I don't know if people want to get that far into the weeds.
No, but let's just kind of keep it simple before you lose me as well. So like there's different. No, that's great. This is amazing. So there's different like things of authority in this world, right? And the primary thing of authority is what the law is. And then you've got other things which are like industry standards. So like as an example, for those of you guys who are watching, the FCRA, to put it to something you guys should be able to relate to, the FCRA requires that credit reporting is maximum possible accuracy. That's what the law says. And then the credit industry got together and said, well, we're going to create this industry standard known as Metro 2 to conform to the law. So there's standards and there's laws. So if I'm hearing you, it's kind of like there's this ICD-10, which is an industry standard for medical coding. And then, so it's expected to be adhered to by the industry. And then I guess somewhere up the totem pole, there's laws somewhere that basically kind of require that the medical providers use their standard, because if not otherwise, I guess it could be considered like billing fraud and stuff like that. Is that it, just on a very high level? Is that kind of a nice way to summarize?
They can't get paid without a code. Okay.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's where their revenue comes from. In order to bill for a procedure, because there's an encounter and there's accountability. In that encounter, you have to have a diagnosis, and then everything that's billed, the activity that is a result of the diagnosis. Is that what you're asking me?
Well, Well, it kind of sort of, but let's continue here. So Aldiva did a little follow-up question, and she was like, so she said that the insurance agencies usually tell the client that it was misbilled, and that is why a claim got rejected. So if you've got,
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay. All right. So this is what you're talking about. We actually just, I just helped somebody with one of these. If in this particular situation, person went and they had their flu shot, they got the flu shot from the medical assistant, but whoever entered in that coding, sometimes especially if you're at small clinics, they don't have, because they're trying to save a buck too, they don't have a professional coder doing their stuff. They have somebody they've cross-trained, and they're like, you're allowed to use these 4 codes. This is what you enter. Don't do anything else.
these are the codes that get us the most money, right? Okay, yeah, you can't answer to that.
So I can't. So they put the code in, but they messed up because they put the code in that would go if they saw the doctor. They didn't see the doctor. They saw the medical assistant for that immunization, because the medical assistant put their correct code in. So now it goes to the insurance company, and sorry, I can't say an insurance company's name.
That's okay. You
So
say
this random insurance
optimum
company,
review of their credit and billing.
thank you. So this insurance company looks and says, hold up. You can't have that with this. Reject the whole bill. And then it all goes back because somebody screwed up. So does that answer? Or
Well,
does that
so I mean, so she
confirm?
was well, I mean, so I think that brings us to a really good point. So there's things that may end up on our viewers, clients' credit reports that maybe should have been paid rightfully by insurance, but did not get paid by
Yes.
insurance because some
Yes.
jackwagon somewhere put in the wrong codes.
You get
And
me all
that's just-
wound up on this one.
That's
Woo!
the reality of the
Gosh.
world we live in. But you know what? I mean, there's a lot of similarities to the credit reporting. I mean, it's the same way. You have a lot of smaller.
It is. And it's funny because I get that excited about that stuff too. So as a medical billing advocate, I will get on the phone with these different people and call them out.
Do Michelle's gonna be putting a whoop ass hurting on these
Look,
medical
yeah,
providers
because
and
look,
stuff,
I told
man.
them, said, you don't want none of this. Let me tell you, I want you to go to page 12, subsection 4, line 3. What number does it say? Thank you. Let me talk to the supervisor. And then I'm done.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's really where your value, as I see it, really in the marketplace.
Crazy?
No, I mean, you understand the game. You understand the game, and here you are surrounded by thousands of credit repair professionals and attorneys. And I mean, this is something that's needed because, we're out here trying to fight the good fight and help get items deleted. And you send a nice little debt validation letter to these debt collectors round one. Look, Aldiva says, whoop ass Michelle. That's going to be your.
Tell Aldiva, hit me up if I didn't answer that question all the way.
But so, we'll get you guys connected. Aldiva's amazing. And so, but basically, a lot of times, the first pass back by the debt collectors is, go screw yourself. Basically, we're going to give you this one flimsy ass little piece of paper that if we even have it. And the point really is just like what I share with everybody about the credit reporting. If you look at a credit report and you've never heard of Metro 2, you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. You don't understand that when all 3 reports look differently, well, they all use the same standard. So why do they look different? They all came from the same furnisher. So I think it's the same thing as, if we can have a better understanding to then rebuttal back to the debt collector, hey, so, thank you for sending me the piece of toilet paper that you sent me or whatever, but, here's why I'm actually asking for what I'm asking for. So, number one, I need an original contract to make sure that there was authorization. And I really need the original billing thing to see the codes because, I mean, number one, my understanding is that there's 4 types of, you said earlier, 4 types of medical providers or whatever. And I just wanted to kind of see what was going on.
No, not providers. 4 places that bills come, where they're born.
4 types of places that bill, and I'm going to go ahead and get my expert Michelle to write my 3rd round letter if you want, Miss Debt Collector. So just access and give me what I want.
And you know what? That's something else that bothers me. I don't understand where these 2nd and 3rd rounds come from with medical debts. And that was how we started the conversation in the sidebar every other Saturday with Cedric and Villa in the pre-lit group. if somebody said something about their multiple rounds, I said, what are you guys talking about? You ask more than once? Why do you ask more than once? So if people understand the fundability in the documentation, they're not asking more than once. You ask one time, just like when your mom tells you one time.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to you knowing the system, the beast, what to ask for. And let's see. So we've got another kind of a statement coming in from Rich Martin. Rich, appreciate you watching, man. He says, I was billed 3 times and I had not seen the doctor for a blood draw. I caught that crap to 0. Okay, so I guess they tried to bill you 3 times. Well, I mean, dude, you're just a walking paycheck to those guys. I mean, what do you expect? What do they call it? The Hippocratic Oath, Michelle? It's more like the hypocrite oath, isn't it?
No.
Okay, never mind. I don't
No.
know buttons there. So, all right. So let's talk about the triple billing. What are these people doing for the triple billing, Michelle? How does that happen?
So in that particular situation, remember with medical, there's no one size fits all. Every scenario is completely unique. So it sounds to me that that individual received a bill that was wrong. So what people need to remember with medical bills, if you have insurance, and that's a whole separate animal, but if you have insurance, anytime there's an encounter and accountability is assessed, and then it goes to that organization, and then it's processed to you as an EOB, which is an explanation of benefits. And many times the people that I help with bills will be like, I mean, I got this stuff and it's in the drawer, and I'm like, I get it, and the envelope was never open. I'm like, boo, we got to open that. So on that EOB, some of them read better than others, quite honestly. Some of them are more confusing than anything in the, like more than a credit report. But that's where you look. And if you don't agree with it, the number is on there. And they have to help you. They have to talk to you. And you say, I don't understand what's happening here. Why is this code like this? And it doesn't matter if that's a 5-minute conversation or a 50-minute conversation. They have to sit on the phone with you. And you always want to ask them for your reference number, because in all insurance companies, every time a phone call occurs, a reference number is assigned. And any complaint, issue, question, or concern with that claim number is given a reference number. What people have to know, if you don't already know this, medical record is a legal record. So it's called a medical legal document. And that is why all conversations have to be assigned with a number.
So it's hard to believe we've been here for almost an hour. This has been amazing. I feel like we just got
Sorry.
No, this is great. So as we kind of take this thing in for a landing for our folks listening, I think there's an important point here to be made, which I don't know the answer to. That's why I'm going to ask you. So you would say that, hey, it shouldn't take more than one round if you ask for the right things. And so when you send your round to the debt collector, I would imagine you give them this beautiful laundry list of all sorts of amazing things you're asking for. And then do they automatically delete it because they're so intimidated? Or if they don't delete it, do you call them? And then at that point, basically it's on like Donkey Kong, like, how do you get such a high initial, is it just a letter, or is it the behind the scenes, hey, I'm going to call them, or even call the original creditor and talk to the original medical provider?
I do a series of steps depending on the fundability source of the original creditor as it's written. And this comes into my HIPAA document I do with the client, and then there's legwork. On average, it's probably 3 to 4 hours of work per bill.
So that brings us to another point. So you're not just paper milling this thing. You put some effort into working with your client.
Oh, absolutely not. And that's why,
that's why you deserve to get paid by a lawyer as an expert witness, is because it's a good
I just want to, I really want to help people, because there are so many, with FCRA and FDCPA, ever since I've been with y'all in this group, I'm mind blown, and I love it, because it's like, this is the law and this is the box it fits into, and everything is it satisfies my OCD on a whole nother level. Because with medical billing, it's like, oh, Venus and Mercury are in alignment. Okay, clear my whole entire AR and send it over to credit collections. It is, there's no, people have to get this part. Like, there's no guideline that says when they have to send it, how much they have to send it.
Yeah.
And here's another tidbit. You can be making a payment in a payment arrangement and it still go to collections. And I'll save the rest of that for the next group.
For to be continued. And so we've got one last little question popped up. Rich Martin, how do you revoke the HIPAA authorization? So that's just, it's simple.
How do you
revoke a HIPAA authorization?
Who is you in that sentence, in that question?
Well, okay, so we'll be the patient. How can the patient revoke a HIPAA authorization, I guess is what he's asking.
So every medical facility has a privacy officer. So that person who in that context is the patient would have to call the privacy officer. You know, nowadays, a lot of them are doing Zooms. I had a bunch of Zooms with privacy officers this week to talk about this training, and say, you know, this is my name. Here's my identifying information. And, you know, this event occurred and I would like to revoke that. And they can have that conversation with you, but I can give you an idea about how it's going to go. You can't go in the back and undo go in the past and undo the fact that you already seen.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like, you know, it's like this theory. People say, if you freeze this, you can delete your bankruptcy. HIPAA doesn't work like that. Stop trying to put a round peg in a square hole. It, although actually you might be able to put a round peg in a square hole sometimes.
So, but I mean, even so, I think what we talked about earlier in the show, the end result is that whether there's a HIPAA authorization or not, that really has no effect on whether a debt collector can collect a report, right?
The second you accept medical care, you have engaged into a mutually respectful environment where the physician promises to give you care within the scope of their licensure and to protect your information. So even in a medical facility, the housekeeper has to have the same medical training that the CEO does, because the housekeeper could be in a room and hear somebody talking about their personal medical stuff. So everybody is bound to the same trust. So maybe I don't understand your question. I apologize.
Well, I think because there's this kind of common concept that you can revoke some sort of a HIPAA authorization, but I think, you know,
I mean, I can revoke a power of attorney. You know what? I'll tell you what. Who hold up. Who asked that question?
That's Rich Martin. So what we'll say here is Rich, reach out to Michelle on Facebook. So Rich Martin.
Well, actually, no, he asked a legitimate question. So I'm going to call. I talk to the Office of the Inspector General and the Surgeon General's office about once a month. I want to have the exact verbiage from the powers that be to answer that question, because I might be looking at this from a narrow scope and I don't want to do that to you. So, and then I will reply so that it can be published for everybody to see it. Can you please repeat verbatim so I don't misunderstand? Yeah.
How do you revoke the HIPAA authorization? So Rich, if you want to comment below and just kind of clarify, are you talking about CRO to consumer like HIPAA authorization, or CRO to insured, I guess, because they're not consumers, or like the insured relationship with the medical provider? So if you want to comment below just to clarify, and then Michelle will get us some clarification. And so, well, we've gone kind of a few minutes over, but this was good stuff. And so, you know, Michelle, this is kind of like your, you know, what's that show that where all those stars go?
You're like the Shark Tank of credit.
Shark Tank. I've got the pinstripe on today. You know, next thing you know, you could be, you know, some superstar, whatever it's called. Anyway, I don't watch TV. My point there being,
I'm just me. We have to help people, and every time we learn something, we have to share it and help people.
If people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them? Can Facebook Messenger? Do you have an email? Do you have a cell phone?
Look, I'm blind as hell without my glasses and the light is in my eyes. I hate Facebook Messenger. I won't answer it. My VAs do. So if you have if you have a question about this medical billing concept, you can contact me at ELLE at listencoachserve.com.
Okay, so when she said L, she was actually pronouncing, but it's not the letter L. So it's ELLE at listencoachserve.com.
Mhm.
Okay, so ELLE at listencoachserve.com. So if you liked it, definitely reach out to Michelle. If you didn't like it, reach out to her as well. She likes bad news as well. But no, and
I
also,
am totally cool with that.
by the
Like,
way, the
let's
next
talk about
presentation
it.
will be even better. And then, of course, if you guys like what you see here, we've got our pre-litigation training course, which Michelle is a part of, and we give a 30-day free trial. We've got over 100 hours of content, lots of people in there, lots of attorneys in there. We've got expert witnesses in there. We've got wonderful medical people like Michelle. So if you want to learn more, reach out or go to creditrepairtrainingcourse.com and you can go ahead and sign up there. And you can always shoot me a Facebook message if you want to contact me. So that being said, appreciate all you guys for watching and being part of this. And we will see you guys on the next episode. You take care.